They kept the lions in an ordinary apartment, and that's how it ended. Lions belong to the feline family. But are these wild animals actually similar to domestic cats? In the 1970s, the Berberov family from Baku became famous all over the world. It made sense, since it's not every day that you get to hear about people that keep a lion for a pet in a regular city apartment. No one could have even imagined at the time what a strange ending this story would have. The Berberov family was very fond of animals. Many different pets lived at the home of architect Lev Berberov at various times. Cats, dogs, parrots, hedgehogs, raccoons, and snakes. Nonetheless, the family didn't plan on getting a lion. It happened by accident. One day, Nina Berberov and her children were walking around the zoo when they noticed a weak and sick cub lying motionless in the enclosure near the lions. "Mom, there's a dog!" the children shouted when they saw the unfortunate cub. Unexpectedly for herself, Nina Berberov decided to take the cub home and try to nurse it back to life. Convincing the zoo employees turned out to be an easy task since they were sure that the cub wouldn't survive. The woman decided that she would help the lion cub get healthy, and then she would return it to the zoo. However, it turned out to be a bit more complicated than that. They named the cub King and fed him formula. They also massaged his front legs, which had little effect. By the way, the waddling gait remained with the animal for the rest of his life, which can be seen in the movie called Unbelievable Adventures of Italians in Russia, where King would star later. The lion grew up surprisingly affectionate, conflict-free, and grateful. He behaved like the most tame and well-mannered domestic cat. The Berberovs tried to return the animal to the zoo as a teenager, but he cried so pitifully and wanted to go home so badly that they simply had to take him back. And the animal didn't give the family any trouble. The only problem was the neighbor complained about the unbearable smell coming from the apartment. When journalists heard about King, the Berberov family became famous. A set of artistic photographs were released which portrayed King's life in the family. The lion also starred in several movies. Ironically, it was his most famous role that became fatal for King. While the film about the Italians in Russia was filmed, the lion was placed in a nearby school. There was a large gym where the animal could run around and stretch between shootings. One day, a couple of students passed by and noticed the lion through the gym window. A boy named Markov began to tease the animal, wanting to show off. King decided that the young man was asking to play. The lion jumped out of the window, having squeezed out of the glass, and pressed Markov to the ground with his paws. King didn't cause him any harm because it was how he always played with his owner. The girl, however, began to scream for help hysterically, and unfortunately, her cries were heard by a policeman. When Lev Berberov returned to the filming location, King was no longer alive. It was a real tragedy. The dog, Chapa, who also lived with the Berberovs and was the lion's best friend, survived him by only a few days. The dog kept sleeping with King's things, and one day, Chapa simply didn't wake up. The children of the family were also inconsolable. They loved their lion so much. A group of artists, including Vladimir Vitsovsky and Marina Vladi, came up with the idea of finding a new lion cub for the family. The Berberovs weren't exactly happy about this idea. They realized that they were unlikely to find such a special, affectionate, and docile lion like King. And they were right. King II turned out to be much more obstinate and way more dangerous. He only recognized Lev as the owner and could snap at the rest of the family occasionally. After the father of the family passed away, it became even more challenging to handle King II. One day, as Nina came home, she could smell something burning. As it turned out, the lion was sitting on the balcony, and their drunk neighbor amused himself by throwing pieces of melted plastic comb at the animal. King II got very agitated. The woman asked the lion to come inside, and he climbed into his favorite place on top of the wardrobe. But when Nina brought him food, the lion accidentally fell down on his back and jumped back up. He hit Nina with his heavy paw. She lost consciousness, and then the lion rushed at her son, who was trying to calm the animal down. The armed policeman barely managed to defeat King II only after the two victims were taken to the hospital. Unfortunately, it was too late for the teenager. Nina only learned that her son had passed away a few days later when she came to her senses. The woman was deeply depressed for the next several years. She only found the strength to go on living for the sake of her daughter. Nina remarried, although she could never fully recover from what had happened. This is a sad story, but it teaches us an important lesson. A wild animal isn't the one to blame for what happened. The lion should never have been living in an apartment with people. That just goes against common sense.